Hello, people. I hope you are doing great. So, in the session today, we will be continuing our discussion about operators. Today, we'll be talking about identity operators, membership operators, and also about the expressions. So, let's get started.
The first one we will be covering today is identity operators. So, what are they? As the name suggests, identity, that means we are trying to find out the two objects that we are comparing are same or not, are they identical or not. We'll be getting into the depths of this like when we will be understanding the difference of the identity operators with the equality operators that we have studied. But let's keep it simple in the beginning and see the examples here. So let's get started. The identity operators are basically the operators which are used to understand the two values. If you are comparing two values, are they equal? If you are comparing two variables, are they the same objects? Are they the identical objects? If you are trying to compare any two other data types like lists, like tuples, are they actually equal? Are they actually identical? So that's what we are trying to understand here. Let's understand this with a little example. Let's take a is equal to 10, and then I said a is 10. So is operator is your identity operator, which is saying a is the a variable equal to 10 or not. So it gave me a boolean value because it is checking it for me. Therefore, it is returning a boolean value. It will either give me a true or a false. So here it says true. That means the object A is same as the object, the integer 10. So they both are identical. When I talk about B is Tanisha, and I said the type of B is a string, is string. So it said true. Yes, you are correct that you feeded Tanisha and B and you inquired the type of B is string or not, and it told you yes, they both are same. Okay, so now the question arises, we have talked about equal, the equality operator, right? And we are talking about is operator. Aren't they same? Is there any difference in between them? If you have this question, guys, then it's bang on. It's a great question. You might be thinking about the fact that this also seems to be the same. So this equality operator and this is seems to be the same. We are trying to inquire if one thing is equal to the other thing. But there is a distinct difference here. There is a very small little thin line which we need to understand. So when we talk about double equal, this equality operator, we try to understand whether the two values are equal or not. We do not, pay attention if they both are storing the same address or also or not. So we do not inquire if the two things are same objects. We just inquire that they both have the same value. So if I say A is pointing to a thing and B is pointing to a thing, maybe they are storing different addresses, but the value is same, I'm fine with it. But if they both are also sharing the same identity, the ID function that we talked about, then we say that is will give you a true value. They both are same objects also. So let's not get into theory. Let's take a good example here. So if you look at this situation where I say L1 is a list and L2 is also a list, which is empty list. So if I say L1, so if I say L1 is equal to L2, so here I ask, are they having the same value? So since they both are empty list, they both are having the same value. There is nothing stored in them. So it gives me a true. It says yes, they are having equal values. But when I say L1 is L2, that means I'm saying the object L1 is same as the object L2. It gives me a false. It says no, they both are not same objects. Maybe they are sharing the same value, but they are not same objects. So how should I inquire this? A question. So I said, what is the ID of L1? It gave me this very value. This is the address, right? Then I asked, what is the ID of L2? It gave me this value, showing that these two are storing the value at different addresses, different identities, ID. So they both are not same objects, they have a same value. So this equality will just tell you if they both have similar values, equal values. But when you talk about is operator, it actually inquires if they both are same objects or not, and that you can also find out using the identity function. So this is a very interesting thing which is not known to a lot of people. This is a very interesting point you should note here. Okay, so apart from this, there is another operator called is not operator. This is also an identity operator. So where we actually try to check if the two objects are not equal. So let's see. I said x is equal to 1. X is not 1. I am saying I am feeding 1 in x, and then I'm saying x is not 1. So it will give me a false. It is saying that that's not true. They both are same objects. So it gave me a false. I said x is not 2, which is true. X is not true. X is storing 1. It is an object which is storing 1, and it is not equal to an object which is storing 2. So this is actually true. X is not 2. So hence we are getting a true. We are getting a correct answer. It's saying that it is correct, that what you're trying to say. It's pretty simple. Let's go on to the membership operators. Guys, it's pretty simple from the name membership. What we are trying to do, we are using this operator to understand if the given thing, if the thing that you are trying to inquire is a member of the other data type. It can be a list, it can be tuple. So you are just try to understand the situation with the layman example. So you are trying to understand, so there is a person called Tom who enters a classroom, and we want to understand, does Tom belong to this class or not? So what I did is I took the identity number, that is student ID of this person called Tom, and I searched the student ID in the student IDs of that very class, and it belonged to it. So I will say yes, he is the member of the class. And if that ID does not belong to it, I'll say he is not the member of the class. So this is pretty simple. So here also we are actually checking that the member, the value, the variable, or anything, any data type that you pick up is the member of the other data type or not. Other sequence of numbers, or it can be set, it can be tuple, it can be list. So in a list, if you are checking if this value lies in that or not, if this variable that you are picking lies in that list or not, so you can check that membership with this very operator. Let's see, there are two type of operators. One is the in and the other one is not in. So what does it do? Let's take a list and try to understand it better. So we took the list L1 with the elements color, which is a string, 1, which is an integer, and then a float 10.50. I checked 10 in L1. So this is basically inquiring, is 10 lying in L1? So in is the operator which we are using. 10 in L1, it says false. No, I can't find 10 in this. So this statement is false. Then I asked color in L1. So as color is a string which I can find in L1, it gave me a true. Yes, that's correct. Then I asked, is A in this string called Tanisha? Is this letter A lies in this string called Tanisha? It said, yes, that's true. Because if I go to every letter in this string, I can see A lies in this string. If I say E in Tanisha, it says false. E does not lie in Tanisha. E is not a letter that I can find in this very word called Tanisha. So this is very simple in operator. Let's move on to the other one. That's not in operator. So like in was checking the membership, not in will check if it is not the member. So it's pretty simple. Like if I just take the same list and I check 1 not in L1, since 1 is in L1, it will give me a false. I am checking 1 is not. I'm checking if 1 is not in L1. But since it is, it will give me a false. You are false. You are not correct by saying 1 is not in L1. Right? Then I checked Tanisha not in L1. Is Tanisha not in L1? I asked the question. It says true, Tanisha is not in L1 because I have color 1 and 10.50, only these elements, and Tanisha is not in me, so it is giving me a true. It's correct. Tanisha is not in L1, this list. So this is the way you can inquire, and this is pretty handy when you are talking about a lot of if and else statements and you are trying to inquire something. So this comes pretty easy to you. So this is very important and interesting thing you should keep in mind when you are dealing with situations with big programs that you want to code. So this is about the membership operator. Let's move on to something pretty more interesting: expressions. So what is an expression, guys? It evaluates to a value. It's basically a combination of a value, variable, and operators. So we have talked about operators, the arithmetic operators, logical operators, the identity operators. We talked about the membership operators. We talked about assignment operators. All these operators, anything that you use to combine values, variables, is what operator is all about. We have talked about them. Then the values, any constant values, we talk about the float, the integer, the strings, a lot of things like that, the list. And then when we talk about a variable, something which is a placeholder where we try to feed in something, right? If we take the combination of all of them, it becomes an expression. So let's see some expressions. So if we talk about x is equal to 10, so x is basically a variable, something where you are trying to feed a value. So you fed this value x is equal to 10, and then you said 3 plus x. So when you say x is equal to 10, you assigned this value 10 to x, and then you tried to evaluate an expression where you have a value 3, an operator x, and a variable, an operator plus, and a variable x. So as I said, any combination of operators, values, and your variables is an expression. So this is an expression, and every expression gives you a value. So if you say 3 plus x, it gives you 3 plus 10, that is 13, a value, right? If you talk about a standalone expression as a value, so if you just take a value 3, that also gives you a value back 3, right? So this is also an expression. If you talk about just a variable x, it also gives you back a value 10, so it is also an expression. So anything that gives back you a value, evaluates to a value, is an expression, right? Now let's talk about just an operator. It's not with, just with an operator you cannot say it is an expression, because just operator doesn't give you a value back. So it will give you a syntax error, that what are you trying to add, what are you trying to subtract, what are you trying to equate. So when you're talking about operator, it's nothing, within itself it is nothing, but when you add some things, when you subtract some things, when you put this operator in between two values, variables, or with expressions, it gives you a value. So just a standalone operator cannot do anything. It is not an expression. So an expression is nothing but a combination of variables, operations, and your variables, right? The values, variables, and operations. The standalone values can also be expression. The standalone variables can also be expression. This is pretty interesting and handy. You should always remember this. So with this, I will be ending up the session for today, and we'll be meeting for more coming on the picture. So stay tuned and do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. Bye bye.